Hi everyone, and welcome to Lipstick on a Rig. Today we're going to be making an elf wine tote, and if you're following along with my 4 skein challenge, then you know that this corresponds with my Santa wine tote. So check the links in the description for the other projects in this challenge. So for this, we are working with size 4 medium weight acrylic yarn, and this is just the Big Twist Value brand. And the colors I picked were Varsity Red, Varsity Green, Black, and Cream. And I'll also be using a size F or 5 or 3.75 millimeter crochet hook. We're going to begin the elf wine tote using the cream and red colors of yarn. And we're going to begin with a magic circle, so drape your tail over your working yarn and insert your crochet hook in that hole that you created. Then all you're going to do is yarn over and pull up through the hole. And when you're placing your stitches inside your magic circle, work over your tail. And all we're going to do from here is place 13 double crochets inside our magic circle. And once you've placed your 13 double crochets inside your magic circle, then you're just going to tighten up your tail to close the gap in it. And once you've placed your slip stitch, then you're just going to cut and tie off your yarn. And once you've cut and tied off your yarn, then we're going to attach the red yarn to our crochet hook using a slip knot. And working up in the same stitch where you placed your slip stitch, you're going to insert your crochet hook. And then I like to drape my cream tails over my crochet hook so that I can work over them. And we'll be working over this red tail in the next row, so you can just set it to the side. From here, we're just going to yarn over and pull up through our tails and that stitch, and then yarn over and drop our 2 loops for a single crochet. Then we're going to chain 1. And the pattern's going to be a little bit different from normal, so what we're going to do is we're going to place 2 double crochets in each stitch in our row. And we are not going to be working in this same stitch where we just worked, but instead we're going to begin right here in our second double crochet. So when you get back to the end of your row, you're actually going to work your last stitch over your slip stitch. And the reason for this is it creates a more seamless look, which if you've been following my channel, I really like. So I apologize for any confusion, but go ahead and place 2 double crochets in each stitch in your row, including your little slip stitch right here. And don't forget to work over your cream tails. It just saves you time in the end when you don't have to hide all of them. And like I said, our last 2 double crochets are going to go in our small little slip stitch here. So if it's a little bit tight, just try to work through it. And then in your next row, maybe we can make our slip stitches a little bit looser to make this easier. And once you've made it around your row, you should have 24 double crochet stitches, and then this single crochet chain 1 stitch here. So we are actually going to skip the single crochet chain 1 stitch, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of our first double crochet stitch. And then we are going to cut and tie off our yarn again. And now we are going to attach our cream yarn to our crochet hook using a slip knot again. And again, we are going to work in this first stitch where we placed our slip stitch, and we're going to place a single crochet there. And like I said before, we're going to work over our red tails for this row, just like we did in the previous row with our cream tails. And once you've placed your single crochet, go ahead and chain one. And just like the previous row, we're going to begin in this second double crochet in our row. And our pattern is going to be to place one double crochet in our first stitch and 2 double crochets in our second stitch. And we're going to repeat that going all the way around our row. And don't forget, we are going to be working in our slip stitch. And when you get done, you should have a total of 36 double crochets and then our little single crochet chain one stitch that we made at the beginning. And when you get to the end of your row, you are going to slip stitch into the top of your first double crochet stitch. So you're going to skip your single crochet and your chain one, and you're going to slip stitch right here. And again, we are going to cut and tie off our yarn. And that was our last row of increasing. So from here, we're going to continue to alternate between our red and cream yarns, but we're only going to be placing one double crochet in each stitch in our row. So we're going to attach the red yarn to our crochet hook using a slip knot. And we're going to insert our crochet hook back in this first stitch where we placed our slip stitch. And again, we are going to work over our cream colored yarns. And we're going to place a single crochet and a chain one, just like we've been doing. And then we're just going to place one double crochet in each stitch in our row, including our little slip stitch. So at the end of this row, we should have a total of 36 double crochet stitches. And again, at the end of your row, you're going to skip your single crochet, your chain one, and you're going to slip stitch into the top of your first double crochet stitch. And then we're going to cut and tie off our yarn. And I recommend counting the number of stitches to make sure you have 36 double crochets in each row. So from here, we're just going to repeat that last row to build the bottom part of our wine tote. And we're just going to alternate between our red and cream colors to do this. And I followed that pattern for a total of 8 rows. So at this point, you should have 11 rows in total. And for this next part, we are going to attach that Varsity green color to our crochet hook using a slip knot. And again, we are going to insert our crochet hook back in that same stitch where we already placed our slip stitch. And I am going to move my green tail to the side and work over my cream tails. And here we're going to just place our single crochet chain one like we've been doing. And from here, the pattern's going to change a little bit. So we're still going to be placing one double crochet in each stitch in our row, but instead of working in our slip stitch, we're going to place 2 stitches in this very first stitch. So our single crochet chain one counts as our first stitch. So now we're just going to add a double crochet back in that very same stitch. And then we're going to place one double crochet in each stitch in our row, and we are not going to be working in the slip stitch anymore. So you should have a total of 36 double crochets and then that single crochet chain 1 stitch. And when you get to the end of your row, remember you're not going to work in your slip stitch, and you're going to skip that slip stitch as well as your single crochet chain 1, and you're going to slip stitch into the top of your first double crochet stitch. And from here we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to place 1 double crochet in each stitch in our row, and that does include this first stitch where we placed our slip stitch. So when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 36 double crochets and a chain 2. And when you get to the end of your row, you're going to skip your slip stitch and your chain 2, and you're going to slip stitch into the top of your first double crochet stitch. And from here, we are going to repeat that last row until we have a total of 11 rows of green double crochet stitches. So go ahead and repeat that last row to build the body of your wine tote. And I went ahead and placed 11 rows of double crochets with my green yarn. So now we're going to begin to place our handles, and we're going to begin by chaining 9. And then we're going to skip 9 stitches, and we're going to place a single crochet in our 10th. And then we're going to place 1 single crochet in our next 8 stitches. So now you should have a total of 9 single crochets, and we're going to chain 9 again. Then we're going to skip 9 stitches, and in our 10th stitch we're going to place a single crochet. And then we're going to place 1 single crochet in the remaining 8 stitches in our row. And once you've placed your 9 single crochets, then you should be back to your first handle. And so what we're going to do is place 9 single crochets around the chain stitches that form our handle. So to do that, insert your crochet hook in this gap and yarn over and pull up through. Then yarn over and drop the 2 loops on your crochet hook. And we're just going to repeat that until we have 9 single crochets over our chains. And now we're just going to place 1 single crochet in the 9 stitches between our handles. And be aware that that first stitch can get a little bit hidden. And once you've placed your 9 single crochets, then we're just going to repeat that process of placing our 9 single crochets over the chain stitches that form our second handle. And again, we're going to place 1 single crochet in the stitches between our handles. And you should be back to your first handle. And so from here, we're just going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch in each row. And our rows should flow pretty seamlessly, so you shouldn't have to start or stop each individual row, but instead the pattern should act more like a spiral. And I added 4 rows of single crochets on top of my handles. And so from here, we're just going to finish this off. And somewhere between your second and first handle, we're just going to place a couple of slip stitches, and then we're going to cut and tie off our yarn. So I placed 6 slip stitches, and now I'm just going to cut and tie off my yarn. And I am going to hide my tail down the inside of the wine tote. And now we're done with the wine tote portion, and we're going to go ahead and create the belt buckle, and the buttons. And now, working with our cream colored yarn, we are going to tie a slip knot to attach our crochet hook. And we're going to chain 10. Once you have your 10 chains in place, then turn them over so that you can access these back bumps back here. We're going to place one single crochet in each of these back bumps. So when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 10 single crochets. And when you get to the end of your row, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. From here, we're going to skip our turning chain and we're going to place one single crochet in the following stitch. Then we're going to place one single crochet in the remaining 9 stitches of our row. And once you have your 10 single crochets in place, then you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And we are going to repeat that last row 6 times. And once you've repeated that last row 6 times, we are going to chain 8. And we're going to insert our crochet hook on this opposite end here. So right there, in the last stitch from the first row. And we're going to place a single crochet there. Then we're going to place one single crochet in each of these stitches from the first row. And when you get to the end of your row, you are just going to chain 8 again. And again, we are going to insert our crochet hook in this first stitch from our last row. We're going to place a single crochet. And we're going to place one single crochet in the remaining stitches until we get back to our other chain 8 over here. And when you get back to your chain 8, you're going to work around the chains as a whole. And we're going to place 8 single crochets around our chain 8. So to do that, insert your crochet hook in the gap between the square and your chains, and yarn over and pull up through. Then yarn over and drop the 2 loops on your crochet hook. And go ahead and repeat that until you have 8 single crochets over your chain. And when you get back to your original single crochet from before, go ahead and just place another single crochet there. And we're going to place one single crochet in the remaining stitches between our chain 8s. And again, we are going to place 8 single crochets over our chains. And once you've placed your 8 single crochets, then we're just going to insert our crochet hook back in that first stitch over here. And we're going to place a single crochet. Then we're going to place one single crochet in the remaining stitches from this row. And when you get back to your chain 8, you're going to chain 1. And then you're going to place one single crochet in each of these stitches going all the way around the row. And once you've made it back around past your second chain 8, What you're going to do is place one slip stitch in your remaining 10 stitches instead of placing single crochets. And once you're done placing your 10 slip stitches, then you're just going to cut and tie off your yarn. And we're going to leave all of our tails so that we can attach this to our project. And I am going to show you how to work the belt with the green yarn because the black is a little bit hard to see. But you're going to want to grab your black strand of yarn. So we're going to begin by attaching the yarn to our crochet hook using a slip knot, and then we're going to chain 10. And once you have your 10 chains in place, then we're going to turn our work and we're going to skip the first 2 chains, and in the back loop only of that 3rd chain from your crochet hook, you're going to place a double crochet. And then you're going to place 1 double crochet in the back loop only of the remaining 7 stitches in your row. So you should have a total of 8 double crochets and a chain 2 when you're done. And at the end of your row, you're just going to chain 2 and turn your work. And the pattern for this row is going to be to place 1 double crochet in each stitch in your row. And you're going to skip that chain 2. So when you get to the end of your row, you should have a total of 8 double crochets and a chain 2. And again, at the end of your row, you're just going to chain 2 and turn your work. And from here, we are going to repeat that last row until we have a total of 22 rows of double crochet stitches, or until this can fit comfortably around your wine tote base. And now I've switched over to my black yarn because I need to secure this to my belt buckle. So once you have your 22 rows of double crochets, your belt should look like this. And for this next part, go ahead and grab the belt buckle that we made before and go ahead and pull your belt through it. So now we are going to secure these 2 edges together. So go ahead and fold them together like this on the right side of your belt. After we secure them together, we're going to turn the entire belt inside out. So we're going to begin by chaining 1 off of our last double crochet, and then we're going to insert our crochet hook up underneath the full last double crochet stitch. And then we're going to insert our crochet hook up underneath this last loop from our first row. Then we're just going to yarn over and drop all the loops on our crochet hook for a slip stitch. And we're just going to repeat this process for the corresponding stitches on both sides of our belt. And once you've secured your 2 edges together, go ahead and cut and tie off your yarn. And I am going to tie my starting and ending tails together twice. And so if you want to be able to slide this belt on and off, then go ahead and hide all of your tails. And I recommend hiding them on the back side of this belt. But you can also use your tails to secure this to your wine tote. And I chose to hide my tails. So now all I'm going to do is turn my belt inside out. And I just slid my belt onto my wine tote like this. So next I'm going to show you how to make these little buttons, but with the black yarn it is pretty difficult to see. I'm going to go ahead and show you with the black yarn, but just so you know, it is just this very first row of our wine tote. So if you're having difficulty seeing the next steps, just go ahead and follow the pattern for just this very first row, and you will have created your button. So we're going to begin with a magic circle, and we're going to place 13 double crochets inside of it. And then we are going to slip stitch into the top of our second double crochet. And we're going to cut and tie off our yarn. And you can make as many buttons as you want, but I just went with 2 to match my Santa wine tote. And now I'm going to use the tails to attach these 2 buttons to my wine tote. And try to center these with your handle, because if you left your belt so that it can move, it might get off-centered a little bit. And after securing your buttons, it is time to insert your wine bottle. And please let me know in the comments below if you experienced any issues while you were making this, and I will do my best to help you out. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, Lipstick on a Rig. Thank you so much for working with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day.